Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Making an Impact. If you've forgotten again already, my name is The Foe. I am back again this week, joined by the fabulous, wonderful, natural Astrid Pizarro, talking all things Impact Wrestling on Astrid's second watch of, again, another week of Impact. What did you think of this week here, Astrid, as you rewatched what you were live in person for?
I feel like there was some it was like the good ones were good ones and the low ones were like low. But like now, like I started just like seeing the backstage part of it. It fills those gaps that I didn't see when I was in the show, so it makes a lot more sense now. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a few of these backstage scenes today that I was watching. I was like, I'm sure that helped put a couple pieces together for Astrid for stuff she saw later on down the line here. So,
Mhm.
lots of interesting stuff. A lot of build for next week's No Surrender coming out of this show. At the end, we'll kind of go down. They gave us the rundown of all of the match listings for the main card and the countdown show next week. We'll run through all of that after we're done talking about tonight's episode, but. Let's jump right into it with a couple of your favorites on BTI tonight. Steph DeLander in her second match on Impact Wrestling, taking on the virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo in our opening match to kick us off today. How did you feel about this match? Where did you stand on it, Astrid?
I feel like it was a great showing. Like even with Deonna winning, it was a great showing for Steph. It really like showed her as a powerhouse. Just like a good introduction for her as a whole, and Impact there too.
Maybe
I
even a
don't.
powerhouse predator.
Yes. But more than anything, I loved what they kept saying during commentary because they kept putting her over as like you said, a powerhouse predator. Like saying, she's like what 6 feet tall and I don't know how many kilos, and then she has like I don't know what that means. Um, and like little things like that, just saying how frustrated like Deonna was even wrestling her because she wanted to beat her already and she couldn't at first. And even as like the back and forth that she had with Jordan as well. So I like how they kept giving us that comparison with her when they in commentary as a whole there. But overall, yeah, I enjoyed the match. It was I this one's one of those I wish it would have been a little bit longer because I like watching Deonna, and I think this is the only time I got to see her. So I was like, I wanted more from her, but it was good.
Yeah, definitely. As Barry says, I think DeLander looked better this week than I've
Hmm.
seen her in a long time. Even she matched up really well with Deonna. They had a lot of really good chemistry. I loved kind of the start of the match where she just like chirping right off the bat, like, "What does virtuosa even mean? That's not even a real
Yeah,
word." And then you had
yeah.
commentary talking about it and communicating. Well, I guess maybe it's not a word in Australia where she's from.
And I
Um,
think she said it in social media too, so that was funny to even like have that preview of it.
Yeah, just bouncing back and forth on that. The big thing coming out of this for me, like she looked good. Deonna looked good going into her no surrender match, but definitely surprising for Steph to come in and lose two matches back to back like that. If she's signed and going to
Mhm.
be here for a while, would have expected her to come in and kind of get a couple wins under her belt off the start here, as opposed to a couple losses. So curious to see where they go with her from here. Hopefully it just kind of turns a corner and they find a way to kind of build her character and build her up. I know Giselle kind of went through the same things off the bat, and we saw a lot of it with Lady Frost when she showed in that sometimes they do take a few L's before they start racking up W's. But for someone being presented as a powerhouse, I thought it might be something where we got either a surprise upset or a no finish or something out of this.
Yeah.
And after the match, would have gave us the perfect opportunity that we could have had a no contest or a DQ finish or something. Because after Deonna manages to finish with the Queen's Armbreaker, um, Giselle Shaw and Jay Vidal attack, trying to get payback for last week when Deonna shoved the chili into Giselle's face. Jay Vidal brings out a new fresh bowl of chili. Giselle attacks, takes her down, picks up the bowl of chili while Jay holds, and then Giselle throws the chili into Jay Vidal's face because Deonna ducked and avoided it, and then rubs the two of them together so that they share the chili between the two of them. Again, something that could have gave us that no finish without really being a big issue building up to the match. So kind of curious that they went with the L and then a post-match tack as opposed to costing the match, but a fun way to build towards this at least.
Yeah, I felt like similar because when I watched that, I was wondering like, why is there chili involved? I don't understand this. And even at first, I didn't think it was chili, and then the way Jay was reacting to it, and Giselle like slipping in the reel, I was like, come on, people, really? And then now that I see, it, I was like, oh, that makes a little bit more sense, especially after I think it was last week what happened to her and Diana, and like
Yeah.
what happened because it was terrible. Um, but yeah, now I understand why she went for the chili, if anything, against her. But like you said, it's like to me this was one that was kind of tough because how do you have Diana lose to somebody like Steph, who's a newcomer to Impact, if she does stay? But at the same time, if you have Steph lose, it kind of loses that momentum of like, well, she's supposed to be a predator, so is she really? We don't know at this point. So just like I feel like the same thing with like Jordan is like, how do you have Jordan lose when we know for sure that Jordan's gonna get that title match after like Masha vs Mickie happens? So it's like you don't want her to really lose momentum going into whatever the title match happens. So do you have Steph win or do you have Jordan win? So that I feel like with both people it was kind of tough. It was like who would you pick to win? But I also think if Steph is not signed, maybe that's the reason why they decided to go with Diana and Jordan winning as well there too. And it's like I know Diana needed it in the sense of like we have her versus Giselle. Jordan, you never know, but I feel like still like the match itself and the way the match happened, it helps you like build up towards Steph and her character. So I feel like just like you said, it needs a couple wins here once we know that she's signed, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't recall if we've seen anything of her officially signing or not. So it may just be she was kind of one of these one-offs brought in for that trip in Florida that won't be around for the next set of tapings when they're done there. Similar to what we've seen with different acts in Atlanta and in New York and wherever they go, they have certain acts that pop in and stay for that set of tapings and then gone again. And if that's the case, it's cool that they brought Steph in, but I do think she's somebody that could really benefit the division and that it would be nice to see her get on as a full-time addition.
Yeah.
We finished BTI. We get into the main show. We get a quick recap of Joe Hendry versus Matt Cardona from last week and how that match ended. A quick recap of the Josh Alexander, Rich Swann, Kenny King backstage encounter from last week that set up our main event for tonight of Rich Swann and Kenny King and how that came about. And then we jump into our actual main show opener, which I just had to note down right off the bat because it's the first time I recall in quite a few weeks now where we've actually had the X Division open the show again, which has always been a signature and a staple of Impact Wrestling that the X Division is always your show opener. I can't recall the last time we actually had an X Division match as our show opener. Been a couple months, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
And this one was exactly what you'd expect of an X Division opener. Chris Bey versus Kushida. Bey had Ace Austin in his corner. Kushida had the Motor City Machine Guns in his corner, but they didn't really get involved too much. They were kind of there. They were visual. They were around, but there wasn't a ton of interference or interaction from the outside. It was just a fast-paced free-for-all of every different style you can imagine. We had catch as catch can. We had some high flying. We had some finesse. We had some reversals and counters, and ultimately finished with a kind of surprising win. I didn't expect Kushida to come out of this one. I'm not sure why I didn't see it coming, but I definitely just the way Bey and like Ace and Bey have been built over the last little while, they just feel untouchable and unbeatable. So I wasn't expecting Chris Bey to take an L, especially not a clean L like he did in this one.
Yeah, I felt the same way just when I saw it the first time too, just thinking that it feels weird for Kushida to win this. That's just what I kept thinking at the beginning. Look, even Mel's telling you, don't doubt the time splitters, sir. No, I was definitely half and half about that one. Like you said, I kept thinking like ASMB right now are definitely like doing incredible. So I wouldn't have them lose. One thing that definitely took away from me in this match is like from my side, I had Alex Shelley like really looking at like the whole crowd on this side, trying to get us animated when the match is happening. And he's always so exaggerated with his facial expression, just like, yeah, let's go. And like when he's looking at the crowd, you're like, yeah, like keep clapping, like keep stomping and things like that. So that took away from me like being distracted in some parts of the match. So I felt bad about that. Very sane. I saw Kushida had been shopping for watches on AliExpress. I've been conned like that as well. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I feel like this is a one for me that I would have had no who I could pick to win it. And just and the incredible thing about it from my aspect is I remember watching this. I didn't know like the match with like the time machine was happening. It was like, this is nice to see. But then having Kushida get the momentum there is like, and then having Kenta involved with the Bullet Club, like it's incredible to have that on the part of the card. So it's like, this is one that I would have been stuck with. It's like, who do I really want to win this match? Because I feel like they both could use it. But it's nice to have Kushida win as well there.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really exciting next week to get to see Kenta in an Impact ring. Been watching and enjoying a lot of kind of Kenta in New Japan when I've been kind of catching up and watching over there, specifically in the G1 tournaments. And I wasn't a fan of North American Hideo when he was here before going back to Japan as Kenta. I've earned a lot more respect for him since then, and I'm excited to see him come back and get to be in an Impact ring with guys like Kushida and Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, and just the interaction of the Bullet Club as well. I know I've kind of been a little bit of a knock on the Bullet Club recently, that they're not really having that interaction outside of Impact with the rest of the club. So it's nice to see a Kenta now coming over and just being a part of the action, really including Ace and Bey in the group from this side as well. We get a backstage segment next with the Director of Authority, Santino Marella, sitting backstage with Tommy Dreamer, waiting on Bobby Ray to show up. I mean, Bully Ray. When Bully comes up, basically he tells Tommy to tell Mickie to keep her mouth shut, and then Santino, they go back and forth a little bit. Santino ends up just saying, we're going to settle this in Las Vegas at No Surrender we're going to bring in David LaGreca, and we're going to have a busted open live at No Surrender in the ring where you guys can work this all out.
Why is this happening? Why?
It started out fine enough, this backstage segment, like Bully trying, like Tommy saying he didn't want to do this, and like they're 50 years old and they shouldn't have to go through this, and like just move past it. And then Bully says to Tommy, yeah, you're right, let's move past it. You know, we move past it, you leave Impact. And I was okay with that. And then they started arguing over who was going to get to talk first on the Busted Open live show. And I'm like, who cares? Like, why should I care who gets to talk first?
Right? To be honest, it's like when I remember watching this, they just told us it was a beat the clock match. They didn't tell us why. And then I kept thinking, like, what's on the line here, really? Now that I'm on this aspect, like watching, it's like, really? This is what it was for? Why? It's like, I didn't ask for more Busted Open on Impact Wrestling. Can we like shut this down as it is, please? After No Surrender, I don't want to see it anymore. I really don't. I'm tired of seeing it at this point.
You know, I enjoy a good beat the clock challenge when it's done right. And, you know, next week could be fun as far as the beat the clock goes. But the actual stakes of what you're beating the clock for, I'm like, how do I get invested in somebody fighting over whether or not they get to talk first? Like, you're a grown man. If the other guy wants to talk first, just be the bigger man and sit back and be like, say what you got to say. I'll talk next.
And it's like, why are we having a Busted Open live during a pay-per-view? I want to watch some wrestling, not these guys arguing back and forth like little girls. Like we got.
I'm sure it'll turn into a brawl as it always does, but yeah, it
exactly.
Just seems pointless. So it's like, why not just make a match?
It's like Barry said, it's gonna be my toilet break. I'm assigning it already.
Sorry. Next week on Impact on Thursday night, we will be having a beat the clock challenge where Astrid and I fight over who gets to talk first and make our predictions first.
I'm giving you the reins. I'm not doing that.
No, nobody wants to see that. Okay, we're moving on. To a match that actually had some stakes. Steve Maclin versus Rhino in our third match.
Mel, do not encourage him.
As long as there's a check of some kind involved in this, I'll participate. Maclin versus Rhino, our third match of the Fatal 4-Way #1 contenders match for No Surrender. We had PCO and Brian Myers qualified last week. we come into this one. I'm pretty sure everybody could have bet their life savings on this and come out on the winning end of it. It was hard hitting. It was fun, but it was almost all Maclin. Rhino would get a couple shots in here and there, and Maclin just seemed like he was shutting him down at every turn. Rhino would block something or counter something or get a big shot in, and Maclin was right back on top almost immediately. Neat little callback to last year where Maclin dodged the gore and then hit Rhino with a spear himself. But this time around, Rhino actually manages to get out. And immediately after that, that crowd, and you can attest to it being there live, that crowd broke into a huge Rhino chant. Like that resonated through my TV, just how loud they were going for Rhino there, which was surprising because I feel like a lot of people are on Team Maclin at this point, that I was surprised that so many people were cheering Rhino.
I was one of the few cheering for Maclin. I was like, I hope I'm okay after I get out of here. But it was surprising because when the match first started, I didn't recall what the person said, but there was something like behind me and towards the top of the ramp of the bleachers that was like yelling something, and Steve replied back to him during the match too, and I was like, why are people like anti-Steve here? Like I want him to win this. And then even during the match, was like when Rhino came out, people were cheering for Rhino. Even after the match, when Steve went off the ramp, people were still cheering for Rhino. He's like, I hear you guys, like, thank you. And like giving everybody that signal. But it was very surprising to hear like people booing for Steve so much. It's like, am I one of the few ones here that actually was willing to win this? It's like, do I hide or what? But yeah, it's very surprising. Like he got a lot of like boos through this match. I was really surprised about. But for me, what I loved about it more than anything is like, even with somebody like Rhino, who's like has a lot of experience, Steve was really like aggressive towards him. Didn't want to let him like stay up or anything like that. He didn't want him to have any break whatsoever. And not only that, but having the ending being with Heath's move of all people, I think that was like really nice, like touch to it at the end as well. And I like how even in commentary, like we're not gonna let people like dismiss this. We're gonna mention it too. So it's like I love little aspects of that because it gives you those mind games kind of thing that Steve really is great at.
Well, and the callback to last year too, the fact that last year when these two had a match, Maclin beat Rhino with his own move, and this year it didn't work to beat him with his own move, so he beat him with his tag team partner's move. Maclin doesn't need to use his own moves to beat Rhino. He uses Rhino's own moves against him. And I think that's just a neat little wrinkle to add to kind of this back and forth that they've had now in a couple matches to tell the story in the ring without really needing to tell a story outside of the ring to us.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out Barry's comment. I like Rhino, even if he struggles a bit these days. Happy to see him in short matches or tag team matches when he can have a rest. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are like really behind him. Even if it's when you have Steve there, I automatically knew Steve was gonna win it. But even then, people were cheering for Rhino as if he was gonna win it. But yeah, I like the show of respect more than anything. Even after the match, people were really clapping for Rhino, and he like gave us like, "I hear you guys." And he was like really nice about it towards the end too. But it was like I'm still surprised that people were booing Steve as much as they did, to be honest.
Yeah. After this, we got a short little backstage segment. Actually, a couple segments, I believe. I missed a point. I'll touch on it when we get to the match. I missed a point in the backstage with Santino from earlier in the night. But the first backstage segment was Gia with Masha, who I don't know why Gia keeps trying to interview someone who doesn't speak English, but God help her for trying.
It's so cute though. At the same time, whenever she answers a question and then Masha gives the one word answer and she just moves on to the next question as if she understood what happened. And it's like, and she does it without breaking. Like she's not smiling or laughing in any way whatsoever. I was like, I love these two together. I really do.
Just Gia asking different questions about the attack on Mickie and the preparation and sending a message. And Masha just, duh. Yeah. It's perfect. I like having seen Masha twice in person now too. Like I am just becoming a giant Masha Slamovich fan over what she's doing in Impact and what she's been doing for Top Talent Wrestling here for us in Edmonton as well. Love that she's been coming out and making the trip out here representing our local company as a champion for a few months now. And I'm rooting for her to be Impact champion by the time this feud with Mickie's done. I have some ideas on where I think we might see this going in the next little bit here, heading up to Rebellion and the summer, but I'll save that for next week's prediction shows and lay it out in my predictions for the No Surrender match, I think. But really enjoying the story, really enjoying kind of how they're portraying Masha's character, and a really, really easy, simple backstage interview just made to be enjoyable by the simplicity of it almost. The piece that I missed of the backstage exchange with Santino earlier, or possibly found, I don't remember where it fit. I apparently didn't take a note of where the backstage happened, but Johnny Swinger and Zicky Dice talking to Santino about the promise that if Johnny can win 50 consecutive matches, he would get a title match, and they're trying to convince Santino to, take that number down. And Santino's like, no, you need to do 50. So Zicky said he had the perfect person in mind on who Johnny could beat to get win number one. And this is where we had that match and the reveal of who Zicky Dice had found. And it is none other than Barry Horowitz, who comes out to, I'm pretty sure, like a circus clown music that makes his way down to the ring. Had a pretty standard match. Both men could definitely pat themselves on the back after that match. It was a standard match. Johnny had things going his way, looked like he might actually have Barry in a position to get win number one, and then Johnny Swinger's ultimate nemesis shows up, the Demon, the Kiss Demon, I'm pretty sure he's the Oakland Athletics hitting coach or something, but it's the Demon. Causes a distraction. Barry Horowitz picks up the win. Johnny Swinger is still 0 for 50.
I don't know. I didn't know how to start. Well, first, I remember when there was a part, I think Zicky distracts Barry, and that's when Swinger, I think he takes a shot at his knee or his leg, and we were cheering because we thought that was gonna be the win. That was it, and for him to finish the match. So seeing that, I was like, oh, sure, he probably gets it. And then he didn't. But I thought it was funny because they said that Horowitz, I think he had a leg or knee injury. So having Swinger focus on that when the match started was funny. Until the Demon comes out and just distracts him. And he went from the domino stretch from the neck breaker to the domino stretch for the win. And then the roll up there. I haven't been watching wrestling from the early 2000s. So I was like, when he came out, I looked at my dad and I was like, whew. I'm sorry, I don't know what this is. And I don't remember if he heard me or not because he didn't explain it to me. So I was like, I don't know what this is. And then the Demon came out. He's like, "Ooh!" And he gave me a reaction as if he knew who the Demon was, but he didn't explain anything to me. So I was like, thanks, Dad. I'm clueless here. But the reaction itself was funny, just seeing it from the beginning when Barry came out. The reaction from the crowd there too. I feel like it was mixed because some people were quiet, and I guess the older people were cheering about it when he came out. And then when the Demon came out, I feel like it was louder than it was for Barry there. But it was pretty funny just watching it from there and seeing the reaction from Zicky Dice there too. It's kind of oh dang it, I had it and it didn't work out. But yeah, I was like, I'm sorry, I've only started watching wrestling in the early 2000s, so I had no idea who any of these people were. Thanks, I was really lost.
The Demon actually came back about a year and a half, 2 years ago. He was around for a little bit, had a couple matches on Impact as well. And I feel like it was the Thanksgiving, the house. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the house where Rosemary's transported people to for Thanksgiving a couple years in a row there. That he was around for that too when Johnny was going through, and the marriage angle and the whodunit angle and different stuff like that. But yeah, the Demon has a little bit of a history that he's a pro wrestler and a Major League Baseball. I'm pretty sure he's a batting coach or something for one of the Major League Baseball teams. So he's somebody that, I'm familiar with just based on the fact that he's multi-talented with multiple careers.
Well, I learned something from you, Zena, because I had no idea.
After the match, we go back to Gia Miller again. Gia is with Moose, who is mad that he was embarrassed last week, and when he gets embarrassed, he looks to get even, and he shows a baseball bat that he has, and we cut to commercial. With that, I will pull up Barry's comment here because Barry Horowitz, absolutely. I can't pull up the comment, Astrid.
That one, I think.
No, the next one, actually, because Barry Horowitz at IPWF would be a perfect fit that you could have Horowitz and Johnny Swinger fighting each other on IPWF and not have to have any additional characters involved, that it could literally just be the two of them. So I'm on board. Let's bring Barry Horowitz in for IPWF, the next one. After the commercial break, we're back with Moose, who was walking outside carrying his baseball bat, sees Joe Hendry with walking away from a car, and decides that must be Joe Hendry's car. So he goes over and starts smashing the window of that car for Santino Marella to come out and be like, "What are you doing? That is my car." He's like, "No, this is Joe Hendry's car." I'm like, why would you argue with somebody who's saying it's his car? First of all. And so Santino has to tell him, pull out his keys and honk the horn, and no, it's mine. And then he decides that Moose deserves to be punished for this, and says that he's going to punish Moose by putting him in a match with Joe Hendry.
What a great punishment.
I mean, at least Moose is considerate. He wanted to send a message, but he didn't want to have to pay too high of insurance if he got caught on camera.
I really thought the joke was going to be that he couldn't break the window, because he hit it at least twice and nothing happened. I was like,
the third smash,
yeah, I think he actually broke it. I was like, when I was waiting for Heath, the second one, I was like, don't tell me the joke is that there's something, the car's made of something and he can't even break it, because I would be like, that would have been so much funnier for me. And then when he broke it, I was just like, in general,
a guy the size of Moose struggling to break a window was kind of funny as he's swinging. Ting, ting. Come on, Moose, put your back into it.
Oh, and then when Joe says, "Oh, my steering wheel's on the opposite side too," that this would have happened missing my car. I was like, I love the little details like that.
This little poke at the fact that he drives on the opposite side of the road because he's from the UK. But yeah, so Santino makes the match between the two of them and says that no surrender, they will be against each other in a combat match. I really enjoy how this digital media championship is just really going all out with the internet digital media gimmicks. Because we had the no holds barred match, the one they had where they had keyboards and mice and different stuff instead of your typical barbed wire and garbage cans, and just a lot of kind of these little gimmick matches and stuff that play into the fact that it is digital media. And I don't know what a combat match is, but I'm interested to see.
No idea. I thought he said .com and that was it. And I was like, what does that even mean? I don't know.
Combat.
I'm like, I'm glad I have subtitles on it. It's combat. I was like, I still don't know what that means.
I don't know. Maybe the fact that it's a bat, it's a .com bat. Maybe it's like Moose's baseball bat on a pole.
Oh gosh, no, don't say that.
We go next to our last of the qualifying matches for the final four-way, or the fatal four-way for the number one contender, Eddie Edwards versus Heath. I think this was probably the best match of these four qualifying matches. These are two very talented guys. Obviously, Eddie and Heath both have a ton of history of being champions in their own rights in different places. A lot of solid back and forth, but a rather predictable ending, I think. Right as Eddie's setting up for the finish, lightning strikes, PCO comes out, Eddie's distracted long enough for Heath to land a wake-up call, the 1-2-3. PCO gets in the ring and brawls with Eddie. I don't know how you go with this, with PCO being in the fatal four-way now and Eddie not, because clearly you got to expect that Eddie's going to come out and draw PCO away from that fatal four-way, right?
Yeah, I feel like out of all the matches, I feel like this is the one that I was wondering, who are they going to pick for this one? I was leaning more towards Eddie, to be honest, and the way I was thinking, and then when he won, I was like, unexpected for me, but one thing that I liked about it, it was after thinking about the ending with the tapings, is just they're putting here the people that were not really involved in the six shooter match, and to give an opportunity to different people, something like Ed and I were discussing last week. Because he said, "Oh, technically, these are like mid Carter's going against Josh, whoever wins this four way for the number one contender." But it just made me think of like at least they're giving an opportunity to somebody different, which I didn't think about until this week. Like I feel like usually I don't think of like Heath when I think of a world title match, for example. So just like I feel like it's that aspect that I liked about this fatal four ways. Like we have people that usually are not involved in the title matches. I feel like it makes it different. I know they're probably not gonna win against Josh, but at the same time, it just gives you that kind of sense of like, oh, it's somebody new that we really didn't think about before, which is what I thought with Heath winning. Um, yeah, but same thing is like the lights with like PCO coming out, and it's just like I keep thinking, so what would you have him be in the four way when he's really still involved with Eddie at the same time? Like, I wouldn't have had him be a part of it in that aspect because I would have preferred to see PCO versus Eddie at the pay per view instead. But
Yeah.
like you said, there's some aspect I feel like maybe Eddie will come in, take out PCO, and make it a little bit more even, and then somebody with like Maclin, for example, can win the match. Is what I'm thinking about. But yeah, I also like the part of like he was going up the ramp and he just looks at it. He goes, "Look behind ya," and when he
Yeah.
turns around, he still sees PCO standing there. But yeah, I think the effects with the lights was pretty cool to be able to see there when the match was happening, though.
Heath does make a little bit of sense in this case because he's at least been there. Last year when Moose was champion, Heath did have the feud where he was involved with Moose while Josh was suspended or missing his contract or didn't have an active contract or a green card or whatever it was back then last year that he wasn't on the show until he came back and took the title. So Heath has been there. Maclin's been chasing it for so long. PCO hasn't been there though, and Brian Myers has been more lower card at this point. So it'd be really interesting just to see PCO and Myers get to be in the ring with a guy who's been near the top of the card, and Maclin, who really is. We've been talking about it for months. The next guy, Maclin is being built in almost a similar but reverse way of what Josh Alexander was. Where when Josh Alexander finally got the trigger pulled last year, everybody knew Josh is the guy that is going to be the face of this company. And now Maclin is coming up that you can look and be like, Maclin is the heel of the company. And really, truly, when those two finally meet head on, which really seems like we're looking at it happening at Rebellion, it is going to be a match that is a long time coming and a well-deserved time. Backstage, the design. Pretty simple backstage exchange there. We'll go to Barry's comment first, though. PCO versus Josh Alexander. God love PCO. God love that man. He is, I don't even know how old he is anymore. He is truly an undead monster who is not afraid to do anything that he has to still keep going in the ring. I'm sure him and Josh could put on a fun match because Josh Alexander could put on a fun match with a garbage bag, but I'm sure with PCO signed to a contract now, I'm sure we will get to see them in a ring at some point, but clearly PCO has unfinished business with Eddie Edwards. The design, Astrid. We're still on the 7 deadly steps for Callahan to join the design. I've given kind of the rundown and the breakdown on a lot of stuff. I want to hear kind of the design from you. Where were you sitting on this? Because this, as a backstage segment, it's your first time seeing it. Wasn't something I assume you saw at the show.
I'm sorry, this really took me. PCO looks old enough to be Johnny Swingers. Oh, Barry. No, I feel like this makes a lot more sense for me as well. Like I said, it was another like puzzle piece for me because I did get to see the match of like Frankie and Yuya versus the design. So I was like wondering how that came about really. To me, what I like to as well is like Alan is telling Callahan's like, yeah, step 5, stick around for next week and you'll know about it. So it gives you that vibe. It was like this is what I came up from, like, my questions. Like, does that mean that they have to go to the same thing when they joined the design? We just didn't see it because he at least seems to know what the step 5 is ahead of time. I was like, did you go through it as an initiation, or was it just like Dina just telling you what was happening? Um, so yeah, the only thing that I like how they set it up is like at first from the beginning now of the show, he just says it's 2 people out of the group going against them, but he doesn't say who. But like towards the end of the day, we get the answer that's going to be Dina and Callahan teaming up there against Yuya and Frankie. Again, I kept thinking, it's like, why is Frankie and Yuya teaming up? Why are they going against the design? So now I see like Khan and Frankie. There's like, okay, now it makes sense. Now I understand. Thanks.
Yeah, it's an interesting build to a match here, and Converse Kaz as a match at No Surrender is one that I still don't entirely understand how we ended up there, but I mean, Con and Kaz, I'm sure, are both very talented guys that will put on a match that's still nothing to scoff at. I'll let you keep going, Astrid. Father James Mitchell with the Hex.
This is another thing that I really enjoyed because like we know by the graphics, we're gonna get Allison versus Taya next week. But it's just nice to see like a little bit of that backstory between the Hex arriving after just the attack that we had. I like how Father James Mitchell's like telling Rosemary's like, we never received a call from you. We never got this and we never got that. So your dad was asking for somebody to come in here. So that's how we got the Hex. But it's like the boss is over the moon about what happened, and he's getting ready for something special. But and the line that really stuck out to me is when he says, he has some havoc to attend to. He's like, when you sell your soul, you don't have a lot of time to sleep. So it's like, I have to go. I love having the references to like the Hex through the promo with the girls. And towards the end, when he's leaving because he doesn't get a lot of rest, the girls were like, "Wait, did you sell your soul? Because I didn't sign any papers. Did you?" I was like, "No, I didn't sign anything." I love that, like back and forth. It was like, "Are we gonna sell our souls because we were not agreeing to this as part of this too?"
Yeah, Marty there is the one who's like, wait, did you sign
Yeah,
something? I don't remember
yeah,
signing anything. And Allison's like, well, no, I read the fine print. There was nothing in there about selling our
yeah.
souls.
What I love about this is like I remember watching I wasn't watching Impact at the time when Allison was there. I just remember the pinkies up and just seeing clips of her like here and there. And then Marty, I remember him like her being part of with Mia and with Taryn. Again, see like clips here and then. I wasn't watching back then. I remember more than watching them after the Mae Young Classic because I was there for those tapings. So I didn't get to see like their starting points and Impact. So it's nice to see this happening again. I don't know if they have signed officially. I hope they did because I feel like it just gives a little more boost to the women's tag division, and even as a singles competitors, they can still, go against the ladies too. So I feel like it will be great to have them be back on board here. In fact, because at first it took me a moment. I kept thinking, oh, whether they're debuting. I was like, no, wait, they've been here before. It's been a little while, so it feels like I kind of forgot about them being there at first. It took me a moment to process it. So I'm like, I like how they seems like, oh, it's been a while. It's like, but we're back here anyway. But one thing that I think is funny because Allison, her name before was Sienna. It wasn't Allison. She was an Impact. So like to hear it's like, oh, I'm back, but I'm Allison. I was like, that's funny. But I like I like how the girls are giving those, like I said, those Hex references. Like the Hex marks your spot, and we're gonna let it go against for the titles and no surrender. And they gave us a graphic confirming the match as well.
Yeah, no, it was a good introduction to them. I'm not really familiar with the Hex at all, so this is kind of between last week and this week is my first real introduction to them. I'm obviously familiar with Father James Mitchell from his different times and Impact in the past. The line you mentioned though, that when he says he has to take off, he has some havoc to attend to. It really stuck out to me because I think on last week's show, I couldn't remember the exact line, but he made a comment when they showed up to Jessica about like, nice meeting you. You look familiar. Have we met before? Or something along those
Yeah,
lines that he
I said
said to her.
yeah. He also said something like I know somebody that's a lot like you along those words or something like that. Like kind of like I knew you from before, but I
Yeah.
don't at the same time. And if you notice, like aside from Rosemary, he was also focusing on her. After Rosemary, it was like kind of like in that order. I also like that line really stuck to me when I heard it the first time. I was like, what's really gonna happen here? Are we gonna get Havoc back? It was like not Jessica anymore, like Jessica, like I'm sick Jessica, but like Havoc.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if this is the beginning of that transformation for her.
Yeah, that's definitely like I had my note down after that. Like between this and his comment last week to Jessica, like, is this a Jessica Havoc turn incoming? So kind of curious to see where that leads to, because it definitely seems like they're kind of foreshadowing something there where we should be paying attention to Havoc potentially turning on the Death Dolls.
Yeah.
And like Barry says, I think the Knockouts tag team division definitely needed this. A little concerned that we're already kind of looking ahead at potentially the end of the Death Dolls with the arrival of the Hex. Like, it seems the Knockouts tag division is kind of in this constant flux right now, where when you get one new team comes in, takes the titles, the other team falls off and then splits, and we never really have multiple teams going at the same time. I hope that's not entirely the case here. Even if they split Havoc off, I hope Taya and Rosemary still work as a team and work together against the Hex and stay with their bond and their togetherness for the time being. But I wonder at what point we look and start thinking, because since Taya's return, she hasn't really been in the Knockouts title picture. And, having her in the Knockouts tag title scene here since her arrival has been a big thing and has really given her something to do. Taya Valkyrie's far too talented to be stuck in a tag team scene for too long without bringing her back around to that title picture, that once this Mickie, Masha, and Jordan story is finished, I would fully accept Taya against whoever comes out of that trio as the champion when we're all said and done.
Yeah, I was feeling the same way too about Taya specifically, because I feel like Rosemary is one of those that she's in the background sometimes. And to Barry's comment, now will Rosemary and Jessica go back to Decay? I don't know. I feel like the references are definitely something to do with Havoc, so that I was definitely like watching out for her after that. But like you said, I keep thinking of like, it feels weird having Taya be like in a tag team. I don't want to say stuck, but because you see her like in MLW, like I saw a little like clip of her and Billy Starks, where I love both of them. So like watching her be there, I was like, this is not the Taya that we get in Impact. So I was like, I've been wondering what it's like for her to come back as a singles competitor, and this is maybe the start of that process there too.
Yeah, no, for sure. It definitely feels like we're headed that way. Once we finish this backstage promo, we go to more women in the ring. Mickie makes her entrance. She sets up at ringside with Tom and Matt on commentary for the Masha versus Alisha match, as she was invited during that Masha and Gia promo to come and sit and watch from ringside as Masha demolished Alisha, which is essentially what happened. It was a very quick squash match. I feel like Alicia's role in Impact right now is to just come in and get beaten. She's very talented in her own right, but she is just that squash fodder at this point in her career in Impact. Not much really to talk about there. Post-match, Masha decides to continue the beatdown, starts choking out Lish. Mickie comes in to try and break it up, and then Mickie gets caught into the choke herself and takes 3 referees to draw Masha off of Mickie and separate the two of them.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting as well. Thank you, Barry. I was thinking the same thing as well. He said this was the only women's match on the main show. I kept thinking of that too, because based on like the breaks that they gave us, I could kind of tell when the tapings were happening for each episode. So when that happened, I was like, well, this is the only women's match for tonight. And like I said, I don't get the backstage part, so I feel like I was a lot left in there, being that this was so quickly done. But it was like, it makes sense the way it happened. Like you said, Alisha has that role of like, whenever they could need somebody to have a quick win, she's the person to go to for this. So it makes sense that this happened. I was just excited to see her even like wrestling for just a few minutes. But like having her and like having Masha win, it does make sense going into this match. I love this part of like in the commentary, like Mickie being there. It's like she said, I found Masha. Masha has been a diamond in the rough. Like I like how she takes that credit for bringing Masha to Impact Wrestling, because I feel like it adds a little bit more to their story. And then she also said it at one point, Jordan beat Masha and I beat Jordan, so that means I can beat Masha. And like those little points, that the little bit she could say because the match was so short, but little things like that. And another thing, like towards the end, she said, there has never been a moment that Masha has never not impressed me. And it just gives you those points of like, it's not the same as it was from her other matches. For this one, she thinks of, I brought Masha in here, I respect Masha and what she's done, and she has been impressive to me, hence why she's here. So it's like she doesn't have like ill will towards her in that aspect of it. It just like I like how much was so intimidating that fact of like she stares at Mickie while Mickey's in commentary before she comes in to attack Lish. And it's Lish, so of course Mickie was gonna go and save her so as quickly as she did. The only thing that I didn't notice that while I was watching it, I noticed it now because of the camera being close. It was definitely the wardrobe with Mickie. I was like, oh no, like the way the truck was going and then she kept kicking, they could kind of see her outfit was sliding down her pants too. And I was like, duh.
They very quickly cut the camera away from it. I
Yeah.
just barely caught a glimpse where you could see like her tights, which was basically a unitard tight almost, that went under her pant line, and her pants had slipped down to you could start to see the plunge of the thong line there. And I was like, uh-oh. But they cut real quick away from it and never really went back to that angle again. So that was a good catch on Impact Wrestling's. And then the next time they kind of showed her from behind, she'd had a chance to fix her pants again. So
and very cool. Poor Alisha had worn the backside out of her trousers, finally, waiting to finally get a match. Yeah, I thought her gear was interesting when I saw there at first. I was like, I had never seen it like that before, but I'm glad I was able to like see her even for those few minutes that we got her that night.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say, because you mentioned the part about Mickie talking about she beat Jordan beat Masha, so she can beat Masha. I'm like, my first thought on that was, unless this is the rock paper scissors of Knockouts Wrestling, Mickie beats Jordan beats Masha beats Mickie. We're a full rock paper scissors here.
It's like 6 degrees. That's what I was thinking. It was like the connection there. Yeah.
A quick Crazy Steve promo. A little bit wild and a little bit disorganized, which Crazy Steve typically is here. I couldn't completely follow his train of reasoning on how the TM symbol no longer stands for Trey Miguel, but ultimately it came down to Steve saying that Trey attacking him has now bonded them together forever, but Steve will leave him alone if he agrees to put the title on the line, win, lose, or draw, in a Monsters Balls match, which I believe they confirmed is happening for next week's Impact, which will probably be our main event on Impact next week.
Yep.
Or our opener, one of the two.
Yeah, like how she said, TM represents for that moment that you attacked me. I was like, I don't know if I like this. But one thing that I was mentioning to you before we started, and I wanted to say it on air too, is like the only thing that I kept thinking when this video package was happening is just Black Taurus was there for a meet and greet and there for this backstage kind of promo, and he was not used for this tapings at all, which I thought was pretty strange to begin with. But he was like in his like whole like gimmick and everything put in for the meet and greet. And even for this, it was like, how do you have him more like all done and dressed up, and you don't even use him for the taping? So I thought that was kind of odd, I would say.
Spoilers, Astrid.
Hey, not really.
You're telling us he's not going to interfere in the Monsters Ball next week.
It's a Monsters Ball. Do you need him to interfere? We got Crazy Steve doing it there. But I love that part of it is like win, lose, or draw. Like I will leave you alone whenever this match happens. And like I thought it was cool because I never seen a Monsters Ball like live. So it was nice to have that Monsters Ball match happening. And I based on the taping, so let's say change what they did last week, it should be the main event as well.
Nice. Yeah, the dislocated horn.
Yeah.
Barry's got you covered. This is why he wasn't used again, because he dislocated his horn.
You can just put a Band-Aid on and keep going.
We got a recap from last week or 2 weeks ago of Gresham's challenge to Mike Bailey. And then last week where Speedball accepted the challenge. And then we go backstage where Santino and the deputy dictator of authority, Dirty Dango, is with him. And they're with both the guys. Santino says he just wants to let them know he's making the match official. It's going to happen. And then Dango steps in and says that they can scout each other next week. He's putting them in a tag team match with each other to face the Motor City Machine Guns. And Santino is like, you can't do that, but it's a good idea, so I'll make it official. I love these two together. Santino and Dango, their comedy just rubs so well together. My heart aches for Tyler Breeze to just decide to come back to a wrestling ring for a taping, for like 2 days, for a show, for a month, whatever the case may be. Just give me Tyler Breeze in this dynamic with Santino and Dango right now, and my heart will be happy. It's just so much fun every time they're on screen together.
And then your good friend Barry was there too.
You're my good friend. I thought it was your good friend.
I didn't know him, so it's not my friend.
I mean, our good friend Barry is the one that is always with us in the comments here.
Yes.
The other Barry did approach and come after they've finished talking to Gresham and Speedball about the tag match. And he's like, I want the same opportunity as Johnny Swinger. I want, if I can do 50 wins, that I get to have a title match. And Santino's like, you know what? Yeah, I'll give it to you. Next week, you'll face the man beast, Rhino. And Barry's like, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to quit while I'm ahead.
I love he's like, I'll stick to my win. Oh my gosh. I thought it was super funny.
I'll leave while I'm on top or quit while I'm ahead. I forget exactly how he worded it, but
yeah.
it's like, no, you know what? I'm good.
I love the part, that they made me laugh at Barry. I love the part also where, like, when Gresham and Bailey are still there, that Santino's like, don't do that next time. Like, I'll make the matches. He told Dango, but that was super funny the way they do. But like I said, they have a really great chemistry, and it's like anytime I see them together, it makes my heart happy and it makes me smile and laugh. So keep at it, Impact, please.
Yeah. Then we get our rundown for next week. So I'm gonna go through what they gave us for Impact next week, and then we'll go through and run down the whole No Surrender card. Next week on Making an Impact after the regular Impact show on Thursday, we'll talk about the show, and then we'll also do our No Surrender predictions show as we do for the Friday Impact Plus events. So Impact next week, we have Bully Ray and Tommy Dreamer in their Beat the Clock challenge against currently unnamed opponents. We have the aforementioned Jonathan Gresham and Speedball Mike Bailey taking on the Motor City Machine Guns in a tag team match. We get Allison Kay of the Hex taking on Taya Valkyrie of the Death Dolls. We have Diener and Callahan of the Design taking on Yuya Uemura and Frankie Kazarian. And then we have Trey Miguel versus Crazy Steve in a Monsters Ball match. And as of right now, that is everything that I have that was announced for Impact next week. For No Surrender currently, we have the Countdown show will be Jonathan Gresham versus Speedball Mike Bailey, which is a match that absolutely should be main eventing a pay-per-view, not on a Countdown show, but it will absolutely steal the show and make the Countdown must-see. As well, we have Giselle Shaw versus Deonna Purrazzo on the Countdown, which again is another must-see match because both of those women are fabulous. Main show, we have Time Machine of Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, and Kushida versus Ace Austin, Chris Bay, and Kenta of Bullet Club. We have the Death Dolls of some pairing of Jessica, Taya Valkyrie, and Rosemary taking on Allison Kay and Marty Bell of the Hex. We have Busted Open Live with David LaGreca and a sit-down conversation between Bully Ray and Tommy Dreamer. We have Joe Hendry versus Moose in a digital media championship match in a dot combat match. We have Josh Alexander versus Rich Swann for the Impact heavyweight title. And we have Mickie James versus Masha Slamovich for the Knockouts world title. That is a pretty loaded No Surrender card.
No, plus we have Khan versus Kazarian.
Oh yeah, Khan and Kazarian. I forgot to write that one down. Yeah, or no, I missed it. I just skipped by it on my list here.
And then the 4-way for the number one contender. So it's officially Maclin, Myers, Heath, and PCO for the number one contenders match.
My eyes, actually, I had them one after the other right after Busted Open Live, and I got so distracted by Busted Open Live, I looked right past both of them.
Busted Open. That's me. No, I put in both so I can remember too. But this is obviously we're gonna have the number one contender is gonna be whoever goes against the winner between Alexander and Swann. Obviously, gonna be Alexander most likely, but there it is.
They gave us a clip today too of a Rich Swann package, just kind of building up the fact of when he had the title and he lost it to
Kenny.
To Kenny when he beat Moose to unify the titles and then lost it to Kenny Omega and stuff. Really nice package there for him. It was, I think, the same one they showed last week. Of just building towards that and giving us a reason to want to root for Rich as well. And then we get into the main event, Kenny King versus Rich Swann tonight. Again, a really fun match, two really talented wrestlers. I would love to see this match with further stakes and reason and story built to it in the future, because these two really gave it their all and really put on a fantastic match tonight. Despite the loss, both men really came out of this looking strong. Kenny looked like he had it at the end, but Rich just barely managed to steal it with a roll-up. And then Kenny tries to attack after the bell with a chair. Josh Alexander comes down to try to make the save, but Rich gets up and tries to counter and kick Kenny King. Kenny dodges. Josh takes the kick to the face, and we end just with an awkward kind of stare back and forth between Josh and Rich on the miscommunication and Rich taking him out, basically.
Yeah, I like more than anything that this was a good back and forth. It wasn't just because Swann is in the match against Alexander. It was a good setup. And Swann just being control of the match. I like that back and forth between them. And I said, like we've been saying for months now, it's like we felt like Kenny King had been in the background for like anything with Honor No More. So it's nice to see him not only with the promo, I think it was last week, when he said, to all the champions, watch out and, keep, to keep them on their toes. But then having him, even though he loses this match, having him still coming out strong and coming out like really confident with this performance as well. I feel like it speaks a lot more to like the changes that they're having with Kenny King compared to how he wasn't on No More. Because I feel like of all people, sometimes I forget he was part of it because he was more towards the background than anything else. So it's nice to see him getting highlighted like he did here tonight. I'm hoping this is just the start of like that process of bringing him to the forefront. Um, like we already had set in mind, it's probably gonna be Josh and Steve, so it'll be interesting to see how Kenny either fits in there or how he fits to another storyline coming up soon afterwards. Because like we said, this is only like a one thing with Swann. He doesn't have like a direction other than that. But I like that ending of having like Josh come in and giving us that moment of like that doubt with Swann and Alexander towards the end there because he hit Josh with the chair. I feel like it needed a little bit something like that to happen because even though this is happening and it's going to be probably a great match, I don't have a doubt about that. But I feel like the storytelling within the match itself, I feel like it's been underwhelming for me because all we got was, the 6 shooter match. Swan wins it and then they team up together. And then it's like, yeah, respect him. And that's all we get from the storyline of just like Josh respects Swan, which I understand. But at the same time, there's nothing else really to it. It's just like that part of like, he's like, oh, he never got his rematch. So technically, this could be like his rematch that he never received after losing to Kenny. But I feel like it needed kind of like those seeds of doubt in there somehow that we didn't have in there before. So it's nice to see this being added to there as well. And to Barry's comment here, he said, was Josh's eyes swollen? Look a little bit like it. I think there was something, I know something where there was his face going on, but I wasn't sure if it was the eye. I can't recall.
I didn't catch anything specific there. I missed whatever that may have been. I agree on this, that the story build since Rich has won the 6 shooter has been a little underwhelming. It definitely feels like they're just really riding on the fact that Rich's story has kind of been simmering on the back burner for almost 2 months now, or 2 years rather, ever since that loss to Kenny 2 years ago. He's been treading water and he's been kind of still in the picture, still relevant, but never actually getting to that scene again. That now they've given him this opportunity to get back there. And it's like, we're supposed to just pick up on the fact that he was there. He never got a rematch. And he's just, been hovering in the mid card for almost 2 full years. And now he's finally back to the scene again. It could use a little bit more. I get the idea of, the story kind of writes itself whenever somebody has lost a title and didn't get a fair shot at a rematch. But there's the friendship side and the working together side that we've seen from Rich and Josh. Very similar to what we had with Josh and Frankie when Frankie came in and was claiming his option C, where there was a lot of that friendship and working together and trust and, having each other's backs up until that final week in the contract signing where they kind of showed that tension and animosity. I feel like we're finally getting a little bit of crack where these two can actually have a reason to go at it. And maybe next week we just see that crack expand a little bit more on Thursday before we hit the match on Friday.
Yeah. And to Barry's comment, would I like to see Swan going for the X Division first, build him back up. I feel like the trip would have taken a little bit longer. I feel like at least for the tapings, when I'm watching this, I didn't know who's gonna challenge Trey for the title until like as it kept going on through the night. But other than that, I feel like this was more like a something short, so I really don't know who Trey is really gonna go against. So I think that maybe, but at the same time, I feel like they have more of a reason for him to go against Josh. As you can see by the video package, like, he never got that rematch. So there was more of a reason for him to go against Josh than going for the X Division title right now, at least the way I see it.
Impact releasing or losing Willie Mack, whichever way it went with it, seemed to really kind of put a damper on what they had for Rich Swann. It felt like Rich and Willie were kind of a mainstay in the tag team scene for a little while. And then when Willie Mack kind of took his leave and Rich was left alone, it was almost like they had to kind of figure out where does Rich go now. And now we're finally just getting and circling back on the fact that he was a world champion and Josh needs credible opponents, and who better for a credible opponent than somebody who was a champion, lost his title to somebody from another company, and never ever got an opportunity to win it back for Impact again. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the match. I think these two will put on an absolute killer match, and they don't need a ton of build because they're two guys who can tell their story in the ring without needing to have a story outside of the ring. Anything else on the night from you, Astrid?
No, just I feel like with this one, I kept thinking, oh, I'm not gonna see it like the in between two of the pay-per-view, but even then, like even last week, I got to watch that too. So I like when they put in, it's like no surrender tomorrow, and my dad kept looking at me like tomorrow. I was like, it's been taped. Don't worry about it. I'll explain it to you later. But yeah, I feel like I said, it's interesting seeing the backstage parts of it because it adds that, it solves that little bit of like the puzzle pieces that I missed, and it kind of puts it all together for me why everything was happening in the ring because we didn't get to see that. I wish we did, but still, it's nice to watch it from this angle and like from seeing from this point of view. And like to even like point out like the last 2 weeks I get to show my dad like, look, you're right there on TV, because I could see the sting shirt he was wearing too. But yeah, it was really like just fun to think about that I was watching this more like a month ago at this point or more.
It's interesting to consider, like, for you being there live and seeing the tapings as they're taped, that I'm sure it's almost like you're looking at a puzzle, but there's holes in the puzzle where you don't see the whole picture until you rewatch later with the production behind it. So,
Yeah.
whereas us at home watching it on a week-to-week basis, it comes across in a way that still very much feels like it's a weekly production show as opposed to something that was filmed in 2 days.
Yeah. And very quick question, but Bully said Dreamer should leave Impact. Did you say yes out loud? I know I did. It's a few moments. Sorry, Barry. That was like when I just want both of them to leave at this point. Like this is like I don't want to say boring, but it's just like it feels so unnecessary. It's like the like back and forth, like the little girls are just like well, like I said, it's like when I saw the beat the clock, I was like wondering what this beat the clock is it for? Like usually it has a good stake to it. So I was like excited to know the reasoning behind it. Or they just say it was because of like who gets to speak first. I was busted open. I was like, it's a pay-per-view. I just want to watch wrestling. I don't want to watch people talking for I don't know how long it'll be, especially with these two going back and forth. Because I feel like no matter what happens, let's say for example that Tommy wins the beat the clock and he gets to speak first. Who tells me that Bully's not going to interrupt him and he loses what he just got from the victory, and or vice versa, to give an example. But I'm just like, so what's really the point of this? Nah.
Yeah. My
Just
hope
retire, busted open.
as soon as Bully was saying Tommy should just leave, there's the door, just leave. I was thinking, I was like, can we just make this that these guys have a match that's like loser leaves Impact Wrestling and just get this over with?
I thought about that, but then I like noticing what happened today with New Japan. I was like, the timing would have been funny just thinking of like we get Eddie and Jay with a loser leaves New Japan match versus when then we're gonna get Bully Ray and Tommy Dreamer loser leaves Impact like so close to each other. That would have been like an awkward time.
Maybe that's why they're postponing it. Maybe they'll set that up at Busted Open Live to happen at another show down the line.
Yeah.
I don't know, with Bully being involved in NWA now too, it kind of made me think that it would give a reason for Bully to take some time and step away from Impact for NWA. But ultimately, I think the two schedules between the two usually coincide well enough that a lot of the talent can go back and forth between NWA and Impact pretty seamlessly. So that said, we've reached the end of Impact. We're looking forward to No Surrender next week. Lots of different pieces on tonight's show. Who was your impact maker for today, Astrid?
Oof. I feel like I want to pick Masha, just because I not only did I enjoy how like that squash match was one of the few ones that I got to enjoy, but like I said, I love the interview with Gia, just like that she answers one word, Gia just continues with the next question. So I like the chemistry they have with each other when they do this kind of segments there too. So it's pretty interesting, and I like having her being involved with like attacking Mickie after the match. I feel like it adds a little bit more to their story that they have between them, because like Bully was saying, it feels like Mickie had kind of forgotten about Masha. And I thought it was strange at first to see like her with Tommy Dreamer. And I'm like, okay, where's the Masha involvement in this? Because I don't see any here. Um, so it's nice to like see them kind of like have like that. I don't want to say face off, but like something similar to it. Um, no, Barry Horowitz. No, who? No, I'm not taking it back.
No. For me, I would say that my impact maker tonight has to be Kenny King. That main event really just, Kenny should be a name on everybody's lips after that match. He should have had the respect a long time ago, a year ago, when he came back with Honor No More. But now being on his own, putting on that match that he put on with Speedball, putting on this match with Rich, even in a losing effort in both cases, he's somebody that came out of these losses looking like $1 million, looking like the Kenny King that I actually recognized from MVP and Bobby Lashley being there. Somebody that really soon Kenny King should be back in a title match and in a title picture and chasing gold once more. So got to give it to him. You know, the slight dodge at the end there, setting up that animosity between Rich and Josh too, just making sure that nobody is ever really comfortable when he's in the room.
Yeah.
That's it. That's our show. For myself, you can find me, follow me, right? No, it's been too long, Astrid. I haven't been here. Forgot which direction to point. Right there, at Cody Defoe on the Twitter. Give me a follow. Hit me up with some comments, some replies. I'm always tweeting out the show. Would love if you'd retweet and share the love of the show, get more people involved in the chat and watching along with us here. If you're joining us live, we'd love to see you in the comments. If you're joining us on YouTube for the replay, definitely drop some comments there on Backbreaker Video. The replay launches Mondays, always on Backbreaker Video's channel. We'll definitely get in there and have a peek at any comments and try and join the conversation in there as possible as well. I will be back next week as well with the natural Astrid. I know, 2 weeks in a row. What a miracle.
What a record.
Really, really looking forward to No Surrender next week. As we went down, that card is stacked. Lots to talk about going into it. Lots of good predictions to come out of with it. And then we'll be talking about the show itself the following week, breaking it down on the making an impact of the Fallout show after the show itself. Astrid, you've got a lot going on. Where can people find you?
You can mostly find me on my Twitter, which is Astrid Pizarro, as it is there. You can find me doing Taking Over with Ed back again on Tuesday, and again doing Making an Impact with you Thursday. And talking, I'm excited to talk about No Surrender being the last show that I was watching for the tapings there. For the weekend, I do have my NXT review going on Women's Wrestling Talk. And if you go on their website, a couple of us wrote a couple pieces based on people within the wrestling community for Black History Month. Mine just got published today about those wrestling girls, Miss Queen Bee and Krista. So it's nice to like be able to get quotes from them and chat with them about what it's like to be a Black fan in the wrestling community. So it's nice to highlight them in that way. I know they also highlighted my good friend Lo from Wrestling Wind Down. So check on the website. They're definitely going to be highlighting a couple people for the rest of the month. So I'm really excited for a second article to come out when it comes to that too. But yeah, another thing that I would say, definitely keep an eye on for us as well, not only on Backbreaker Media Mondays, but on our local establishments. We have a lot going on there as well. I don't know, we have a couple of the, we're probably going to have a preview and a post show to the chamber. And not only that, but Bobby and I will have a show about horror movies coming up soon. So we're definitely working on that, with the Scream being the first movie that we talk about, being that it's premiering so soon. Yeah, like aside from wrestling, I talk about other stuff finally. So it's nice to talk about horror, being that like I love watching horror movies, and then I know like Cody's another person that I can talk about the movies as well, aside from Bobby. So we're definitely gonna be chatting about some horror movies pretty soon. So I say like watch out for the channel and subscribe to it, and the Backbreaker Media and mine as well, because you never see what you're gonna see next from either one of us. We like there's so much going on with our local establishment as well that we always like to bring up to the table. So if you can just subscribe, and that way you can get notified when anything's uploaded there as well. But before we leave, I did want to rate the Pinky Stuff Missy, Allison K as well. We rated her last time and she was really sweet about it, so I decided to do it again. But yeah, I want to thank everybody for being in the comments, as Cody likes to do as well every week. I appreciate everybody in the support. No? Okay. I was making sure.
I mean, I thought you were on it there. Sorry.
No, it's your thing, so I'll let you have it.
I always appreciate the comments and everybody that's in here. Barry, you're wonderful. You're always in here joining the conversation with us. We're always happy to see you in there. Mel as well, always happy to have you around. Everybody else, if you're joining and just lurking, definitely drop a comment. We'd love to know who all's in here watching us on any given show, but happy to just have you here if you're not comfortable or don't want to watch or join the conversation as well. Hope to see you again next week, and that's it.
Well, we'll see you guys next week.